I never imagined a birthday text would detonate my life. It was 2:42 p.m. I was sitting in the back alley behind the Sunrise Diner, sipping a lukewarm coffee on my 15-minute break, scrolling through messages from coworkers who'd remembered it was my birthday cupcake emojis. Happy 22nd B when his text came in. Sold your laptop. Madison needs a new phone. Be grateful we feed you. My heart stopped. The screen seemed to blur. I blinked, thinking I misread it. My laptop, my laptop. Before I could even reply, a second message followed. Also, you'll pay her tuition. $6,000 by Friday. I read it again and again. Like if I kept staring, the words would rearrange into something less absurd, something less cruel. But no. It was all there, clear as glass. They'd sold the one thing I truly owned, and now they expected me to fund my sister's 4th attempt at college. All this on my birthday. I texted back only 2 words. No chance. Seconds later, his reply lit up the screen. Then get out. You're cut off. And just like that, the last 22 years of keeping the peace, of playing the good daughter, of saying, it's okay when it wasn't, it all snapped. Let me rewind for a second. My name is Brooke Wilson, and until that moment, I was just another overworked college senior, grinding my way through classes and shifts, at the diner scraping together every spare dollar for a future I prayed would look different than my present. I was living at home not by choice, but because my parents swore it was smarter to save money. In reality, it meant they saved money by draining mine. But I didn't fight it. I thought that's what family did. You helped each other, you sacrificed, you stayed quiet until they stole from me. Until they sold my laptop, my MacBook Pro I saved up for nearly a year, working double shifts, eating ramen for dinner, skipping coffee runs just to afford it. That machine wasn't just metal and glass. It held everything: my thesis, my job applications, my design portfolio, every photo I hadn't posted yet, every late-night journal entry I was too afraid to speak aloud. It held me. The morning had started deceptively normal. I got up early for my waitressing shift. No balloons, no breakfast, just the smell of burnt toast and coffee. My mother, Karen, was sitting at the kitchen island scrolling on her phone. "Happy birthday, Brooke," she said without looking up. "Thanks, Mom." I lingered, waiting for more. A hug, a card. Anything but all I got was, "Don't forget to drive Madison to her friends later." And just like that, my day had a new purpose chauffeur for the golden child. I nodded, pressing my lips together. I was used to it. Honestly, I should have stopped hoping for more years ago. Madison is my younger sister by 2 years, and somehow always the sun around which our parents orbit. When I turned 16, they canceled my party last minute because Madison had a soccer tournament. At 18, the $1,000 my grandparents gifted me for graduation mysteriously went toward family needs, only for Madison to show up a week later with a new car. By 21, I'd learned to make my peace with being forgotten. That's why what happened this year shouldn't have shocked me, but it did. Because stealing my laptop, that was war. After my shift, I walked to my car in a haze. The diner's neon lights flickered in my peripheral vision, but I barely noticed. My hands trembled as I texted Olivia, "I'm coming over, can't go home, tell you everything." Olivia Martinez has been my best friend since freshman year of high school. She's smart, loyal, and always the one who saw the truth, even when I didn't want to admit it. She lived 10 minutes away in a cramped apartment with a roommate who worked nights. When she opened the door and saw my face, she didn't ask questions, just pulled me into a hug. Oh no. What did they do this time? I held up my phone and let her read the texts. Her expression twisted with disbelief. "They sold your laptop. The one you worked all summer for." I nodded. "And now they want you to pay Madison's tuition." Her voice pitched higher, angrier. "She's failed out of 3 programs already," I whispered. "She partied through every semester, and I'm the one who's supposed to bail her out again." "Are you kidding me?" Olivia asked, pacing. "And they cut you off because you said no." "On your birthday," I dropped onto her couch, my hands still shaking. "This isn't just a bad birthday," I said. "This is the line. I can't go back." Olivia made us tea while I recounted every slight, every overlooked achievement, every birthday eclipsed by Madison's latest need. And somewhere in between the memories and the tea going cold, a plan began to form. No more begging, no more silence, no more letting them rewrite the story. This time, I was going to make them read my version. By midnight, the shock had hardened into resolve. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I'd done that already, curled up on Olivia's couch, tea gone cold in my hands, letting years of buried hurt rise to the surface, like old bones in thawing ground. But something shifted when Olivia said, "They think you'll take it. That's why they keep doing it." She was right. For 22 years, I took it. The guilt trips, the double standards, the theft dressed up as family help. But this time, they hadn't just crossed the line, they'd lit it on fire and expected me to walk through it barefoot. I wasn't going back to that house to ask for anything. I was going back to reclaim everything. Olivia and I sat at her kitchen table, cups of instant coffee, our phones between us, a legal pad filling up with a list that would become something more powerful than any confrontation, the folder. We broke it into sections: financial abuse, stolen property, unpaid debts, proof of independent ownership, and every receipt or statement I could recall. "You need documentation," Olivia said firmly, tapping her pen. "You're not just telling your truth, you're showing it." It hit me then how for years I thought I couldn't prove any of it. But the evidence had been there all along, buried in email folders, old bank statements in the back of drawers. And so began the gathering. At 2:04 a.m., I called Aunt Diane. She picked up groggily. "Brooke, sorry to call so late. I need to ask you something." She was quiet for a beat. "Then, what happened?" I told her. "Everything." Diane wasn't surprised. "Frank always played favorites," she said. "Your grandparents saw it too, but he wouldn't hear it. I've watched it for years. But selling my laptop, demanding tuition payments, that crosses a line," she agreed. "And Brooke, listen to me. You don't owe them silence." I closed my eyes and let the words sink in. Maybe it was the way she said it. Maybe it was hearing it from someone in the family. But in that moment, I felt something snap free. "I'm going to gather everything I said. Proof, records, receipts." "Good," she said. "And when you're ready, bring it to me. I'll help you make sure they don't twist the story." At 3:00 a.m., I crept back into the house I'd called home for 2 decades. Olivia offered to come with me, but I needed to do this alone. The hallway light was off. The silence felt unnatural. I moved quietly, heart pounding. When I reached my room, the door was ajar, and standing in front of my mirror was Madison, wearing my black cocktail dress, the one I'd saved for job interviews, the one I explicitly said no one could borrow. "What are you doing in my room?" I asked sharply. She barely flinched. "Oh, it's you, just trying on some stuff. Dad says you're moving out, so—" I figured. She twirled in the mirror like it was hers, like I was the intruder. I gritted my teeth. "That doesn't mean my clothes are free for all." She shrugged. "Mom said I could take whatever. You don't need fancy dresses for waitressing." The way she said it, so dismissive, so rehearsed, lit a flame in my chest. "And my laptop?" I asked. Madison blinked. "Oh, Dad sold it to Walter next door. His daughter's starting college. Got $1 $200 for it." She beamed. "My new phone only cost $800. So, I get to keep the rest." I was speechless. She wasn't just parroting our parents. She was profiting from their betrayal. And still, she didn't even realize it. I packed quietly while Madison wandered out humming to herself in my dress. Toiletries, clothes, important documents, the few sentimental items I hadn't already lost. Then I lifted the loose floorboard under my desk. Inside was a metal tin I hadn't touched in years, $3,000 in cash. My emergency fund tips tucked away in secret, away from family emergencies that always ended up draining my bank account. Next, I grabbed the dusty box from my closet, the one I'd labeled tax stuff to keep it from disappearing. Inside, old pay stubs, utility bills in my name, grocery receipts, copies of house repairs I'd paid for, bank withdrawals labeled just until payday, A paper trail of my childhood turned credit line. I scanned and copied everything at a 24-hour print shop, organizing it into neatly labeled sections. When I was done, I had a folder that could make a lawyer weep and a narcissist sweat. Before I left the house for the last time, I placed that folder on the kitchen table, front and center, on top a simple handwritten note. The truth about who's been supporting who. No more. I didn't look back. I got in my car, set the folder's twin copy in my passenger seat, and drove to Olivia's. It was 4:17 a.m. I wasn't sure what I'd face when the sun rose, but I knew one thing for certain. This time, they would wake up to the consequences. I didn't sleep. Even after Olivia tucked a blanket around me and turned off the lights, my mind spun like a carousel on fire. I kept seeing it, my folder sitting square on the kitchen table like a quiet bomb. Not rage, not yelling, just facts. Facts that said, I see what you've done. Facts that proved I was never the one taking. I was the one giving. By 7:08 a.m., my phone was vibrating so hard it fell off the couch cushion. 27 missed calls, 43 text messages, 5 voicemails. I blinked, then laughed. They found it, I said. From the kitchen, Olivia's voice floated back. Did they read it? Oh, they read it. The first text came from Madison at 7:14 a.m. What did you do, Mom? Screaming. Dad's flipping out. Then are you trying to ruin us? Then you sued us. What is wrong with you? I hadn't sued anyone. Yet. But I had filed a police report for theft. I had attached a formal invoice, and I had included a letter from my friend Trevor, a law student, sure but very persuasive in legal language. The voicemails were worse. The first was from my mom, her voice sharp and trembling. Brooke Elizabeth Wilson, you come home this instant and explain yourself. How dare you leave such slanderous documentation? Then, Brooke, sweetheart, please. We can talk about this. Your father is very upset. There are explanations for everything. And then the most jarring one of all, Brooke, baby, please call us back. We love you. We're still a family. As if a few words could erase 6 years of financial theft. My father's texts were less poetic. Ungrateful child. This is a gross misrepresentation, and you know it. If you pursue this ridiculous vendetta, you'll regret it. But by 10:00 a.m., even his tone started to change. Let's talk about this like adults. We can work out something for the laptop. You're overreacting, Brooke. Classic. From outrage to gaslighting in under 3 hours. The most unexpected message came from a number I didn't recognize until the voicemail played. Brooke, it's Grandma Eleanor. Her voice shook, not with age, but fury. I just spoke with your father, and I don't have words. I had no idea things had gotten so bad. Your grandfather and I are coming to town tomorrow. Do not respond to your parents until we've had a chance to speak with you. Call me. I dropped the phone. Grandma Eleanor, the peacekeeper, the diplomat, taking sides. Olivia looked up from her laptop, coffee in hand. Grandma's mad grandma is flying in. She gave a low whistle. Oof, they're not ready. I turned off my phone. Not silent, off. I needed breathing room, not a war zone in my pocket. That afternoon, Richard, my manager at the diner, called Olivia's landline. Is Brooke okay? He asked. She didn't show up. I'm so sorry, I began. He cut me off. It's okay, Olivia told me. Take today. Actually, take a few extra shifts next week if you want. And if you need an advance on your paycheck, say the word. His voice was calm, solid, like a lighthouse in fog. I wiped my eyes. Thank you, really. I'll be there tomorrow. Around 5:00 p.m., a quiet knock came at the door. Olivia peeked through the peephole, then turned to me with a raised brow. It's Aunt Diane, and she brought reinforcements. I opened the door to find Diane in a gray trench coat, holding a manila envelope and wearing the expression of someone who meant business. Hi, kiddo, she said, giving me a quick hug. I went to your parents' house. My stomach dropped. What happened? Chaos? Your dad's in full denial mode. Your mom is calling every relative she can for sympathy, and Madison is, well, let's just say she's not having a good day. What kind of not good she's having, what I can only describe as an identity crisis. We sat down at Olivia's table again because apparently this was now a war room. Diane slid the envelope toward me. Inside was a printed report, numbers, legalese, names. Your grandfather set up equal trusts for you and Madison when you were born, she said. You were supposed to receive yours at 18. I blinked. What Frank, your father, convinced the trustee that you weren't responsible enough to manage your own fund, so he kept control. But he told me there wasn't any money, that it was lost in the market. Diane nodded grimly. Meanwhile, he used your fund to cover Madison's tuition attempts after she burned through her own. It was like the floor shifted under me. All those double shifts, all the nights I went without, the student loans, the stolen cash, the silence, and all along, I had a fund. All along. There was enough. Can we fix this? I asked, voice hoarse. Diane nodded. Grandma's on it. She's arriving tomorrow with her lawyer. Your dad's not walking away from this, not this time. I didn't cry, but I did feel something twist loose in my chest. For once, the truth wasn't mine to prove. They would have to answer. The doorbell rang just past 3. Tyler, my cousin and Diane's son, was home from college and had taken over the role of neighborhood lookout. He peeked through the curtain and turned to me, brows raised. It's Madison. I froze. I'd imagined this moment a dozen ways. She might come screaming, demanding an apology. She might play innocent, twisting the narrative just like she always had. But what I hadn't prepared for was a different Madison, one without makeup. Hair pulled back into a messy knot, eyes red-rimmed like she hadn't slept. She looked small. Should I send her away? Tyler asked. I hesitated, then shook my head. Let her in. Madison stepped into the entryway like a guest in a stranger's house. Her eyes flicked around, taking in the space she'd never bothered to visit before. Can we talk? She asked softly. I led her to the kitchen. No shouting, no accusations, just 2 sisters finally sitting at the same table. Silence stretched between us until she broke it. I didn't know she said. I stayed quiet. What exactly didn't you know? I asked, keeping my tone even. Madison swallowed hard. That you were paying the bills. That Mom and Dad were taking money from your account. That they sold your laptop. That they drained your trust fund. Her voice cracked. They always told me you were just good at managing money, that you offered, that you were happy to help. I stared at her, searching for the smirk, the fake innocence, the manipulation I'd come to expect. But it wasn't there. For years, I said slowly, I worked 2 jobs while you failed out of college after college. You wrecked 3 cars and got new ones. I couldn't even buy coffee without someone asking where the receipt was. Madison winced. I know how it looks. Do you? I snapped. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you lived in a fantasy built on my exhaustion. She nodded quickly. I know. I see that now. But I didn't ask for that. I didn't know they were putting it all on you. There was pain in her voice, but not self-pity, recognition. And for the first time, I saw it. Maybe Madison wasn't just the spoiled one. Maybe she'd been a pawn too, told to smile, keep quiet, stay pretty, follow the path our parents carved. I hated those majors, she admitted. Business, pre-law, accounting. I failed because I didn't care. I wanted to study education. I blinked. You want to teach Madison? Nodded, eyes glassy. But Dad said that was a waste of money. He said no one respected teachers, that I'd never amount to anything if I didn't pick a real career. I stared at her, stunned. All this time, I'd assumed she chose the chaos, that she liked the parties, the flakiness, the golden treatment. But maybe she had been trapped in a different way, infantilized, controlled, just like me. What are you doing here, Madison? I asked gently. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Inside, $800 in cash. It's for the phone, she said. I didn't know where it came from. I thought they bought it for me because of my midterms. She laughed bitterly. That's what they told me, a reward. I didn't know it was your laptop. For the first time in years, I saw my sister not as a rival, but as another girl raised in a house that taught us both to serve, but only one of us to question it. And then, the screech of tires outside. Tyler ran to the window. It's them, Karen and Frank. Of course. My parents barreled out of their car like a storm in pressed clothing. I didn't tell them I was coming, Madison said quickly. I swear. Before I could respond, there was pounding at the front door. Brooke, open this door right now. Don't answer it, I said calmly. They have no right to be here. You can't ignore us forever. My mother's voice shrieked through the wood. Madison looked shell-shocked. You're just going to let them yell. I don't have to let them do anything. Just then Diane walked in, holding a grocery bag, and paused, taking in the noise and the frozen expressions. Without a word, she set the bag down, walked to the door, and opened it a crack. I watched from behind as she stepped outside, her voice low and firm. I told you not to show up uninvited. Frank's voice roared. She's destroying our family. Diane didn't flinch. You did that yourself. When his voice rose again, she pulled out her phone and said 5 words. Then I'm calling the police. 5 minutes later, a patrol car pulled into the driveway. The officer, young, bored, and unimpressed, listened as my father ranted about ungrateful daughters and family privacy. The officer nodded, took a few notes, then said, Sir, unless you were invited to this residence, I need you to leave the property. We're her parents, my mother shrieked. And she's an adult, the officer replied. This is trespassing. You've been asked to leave. My parents were stunned, like the rules had shifted without warning. Frank opened his mouth again, but then another car pulled up. Black, sleek, and out stepped a man in a navy suit with a briefcase in hand. That's Grandma's lawyer, Madison whispered. The man approached calmly and handed Diane a sealed envelope. For Brooke Wilson, he said, notice of emergency hearing regarding misappropriation of trust funds. Your presence is requested next week. Frank's face went pale, and for the first time ever, he was silent. After the confrontation at Aunt Diane's house, everything felt different. Not easier, but clearer. The people I'd once bent over backward to please my parents had shown who they truly were, and the people I never expected to lean on Olivia. Aunt Diane, even Madison were the ones holding me up. My first priority, take control of my life. That began with a meeting in a downtown office with Samantha Powell, a financial advisor Grandma Eleanor trusted. She was sharp, direct, and didn't pity me. Unfortunately, she said as she flipped through the stack of documents, I brought your situations more common than you think. Family financial abuse is wildly underreported, but the evidence you've gathered, this is solid. With her help, I opened new bank accounts, froze access to any linked cards, and established legal protections to prevent further exploitation. The trust fund situation will be addressed in court, she said. But from now on, we protect your future, not theirs. I walked out of her office standing taller than I had in weeks. Then came the job interview. Callahan Marketing Group, a sleek agency in the city. Richard, my manager at the diner, had sent in a glowing reference. I showed up in a borrowed blazer, clutching a resume I'd reprinted at the library, wondering if they'd see through me. But Allison Mercer, the interviewer, didn't care about appearances. She cared about story. Tell me about a challenge you overcame, she asked. I took a deep breath and gave her the polished, professional version of my past few weeks. No messy drama, just grit, accountability, and the will to build again from nothing. She leaned back, visibly impressed. So, you maintained a 3.8 GPA, worked 2 jobs, supported your family, and now you're starting over with a strategic plan, I nodded. That's the kind of determination we value, she said. We have an opening for a part-time assistant that can become full-time after graduation. The salary was nearly double what I'd made waitressing. I accepted on the spot. And then, just when I thought life couldn't surprise me anymore, a package arrived at Olivia's apartment. A familiar rectangle wrapped in bubble wrap. A note tucked inside. Brooke Walter felt terrible when he found out what happened. I reimbursed him. Here's your laptop. Some people still do the right thing. Grandma Eleanor, I nearly dropped it. I opened the lid with trembling fingers. It powered on, my thesis, my resume, my photos, all still there. The feeling that washed over me wasn't just relief, it was recognition of who I had been, of what I could be again. With my new job underway and my academic future back on track, I began sessions with Dr. Vanessa Torres, a therapist specializing in family trauma. In our first meeting, I told her everything. She listened, then said something that cracked the cement of guilt I'd been carrying. You were the scapegoat. Your sister was the golden child. That's not random, it's emotional survival strategy for dysfunctional parents. But why me? I asked. She smiled gently. Because you were the one who could handle it. That doesn't make it fair, but it does mean you were never the problem. Understanding the psychology didn't fix everything overnight, but it helped me stop blaming myself for not being enough. What shocked me most was Madison. She kept showing up, not with excuses, but with questions. Do you remember when Dad said I couldn't join student council because it was a waste of time? Why did Mom always make you pick me up when I missed the bus? It was like she was rewatching her childhood with new eyes. And then she said it, I reapplied to college. For education, Grandma's helping. I want to teach 3rd grade, I didn't cry. But my throat tightened. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was rebuilding. From the ground up. 2 weeks after moving into Aunt Diane's spare room, Grandma Eleanor offered me something unexpected. I own a few buildings downtown, she said. I want to offer you a unit, rent-controlled, close to school, close to work, but still yours. She held up a finger. But you'll pay your own rent. Family discount, but no free rides. That's how we do things right. And that was the thing about Eleanor. She didn't pity me. She didn't scold. She didn't guilt. She respected me. I accepted. The apartment was small. The walls were white. But to me, it was everything. On my first night there, as I carried the last box inside, my new neighbor poked his head out from across the hall. Ethan Parker, graphic designer, warm smile, easy laugh. You need help, I hesitated. Maybe with the box marked books. It's a little cursed, he laughed. I've battled cursed book boxes before. I'm certified. We ended up chatting for an hour in my kitchen over pizza. He didn't ask about my family. He didn't try to pry. He just asked, "What's your favorite story?" And just like that, something new began. There were 23 candles on the cake this time. And for the first time in my life, they didn't feel like reminders of time lost, but of time reclaimed. 1 year ago, I'd been cut off on my birthday, banished by the very people who were supposed to protect me. That day shattered everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and love. But this year was different. My apartment wasn't fancy, one-bedroom, hand-me-down furniture, still smelled faintly of fresh paint, but it was mine. And tonight, it was filled with the kind of warmth I used to dream about in the back booth at the diner. Olivia brought cupcakes. Aunt Diane brought wine and a ridiculous birthday hat. Grandma Eleanor showed up with a stack of Tupperware, a knowing look, and her infamous macaroni casserole. Ethan brought flowers and, without asking, took over the kitchen to warm everything up. And then Madison arrived. She was late, but she came. Hair in a short pixie cut. No designer purse, no air of performance, just her. With a smile I hadn't seen since we were kids. I brought something, she said, reaching into her coat pocket. Actually, 2 things. First, a check, $6,000. I've been working as a teaching assistant, she explained. Saving everything. I know it doesn't fix everything, but it's something. I blinked at her, stunned. That's not from Mom or Dad, she added. It's from me. No strings, no lies. The second thing, a hand-drawn card from the kids in her tutoring program. To Miss Madison's cool big sister, happy birthday. I didn't say anything. I just hugged her. For real. The fallout from the trust fund case had ended 6 months earlier. The court ruled in my favor. The financial restitution confidential. The terms enforced. My parents were removed as trustees, forced to attend counseling, and required to repay what they had misused. Karen tried to reach out with tear-streaked voicemails. We miss our girls. This is all a misunderstanding. But every message centered on her pain, never mine. Frank never apologized, just sent one final text. "You ruined everything." No, Dad. I survived everything, and that's not the same. Ethan pulled me aside as guests refilled their drinks and Madison helped plate cake. "You doing okay?" I nodded. "Better than okay." He smiled. "Good. Because your grandma asked me to grab this from her car." He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a property deed, a 1-acre plot in the Blue Ridge Mountains, with a small, worn cabin that had belonged to my grandfather. He always said you were the one who'd understand what it meant to build something from nothing, Grandma Eleanor said. Now it's yours. My breath caught. Not because of the land, but because of what it represented. Freedom, roots, a legacy built on choice, not obligation. Later, as the sun dipped below the city's skyline, Olivia lit the candles. "Make a wish," she whispered. I looked around the room, at Madison rebuilding her future on her own terms, at Diane quietly refilling glasses, no drama, just strength, at Eleanor, who'd taught me that loving someone doesn't mean enabling them, at Ethan, who asked nothing of me except to be myself. I took a deep breath and blew out the candles. No wish, no desperate hope for things to be different, because for the first time, they already were. As people trickled out, Madison stayed behind to help clean up. We stood in my tiny kitchen laughing over a burnt piece of garlic bread Ethan had forgotten in the oven. "You ever think about what would have happened if Dad hadn't sent that text?" she asked quietly. "All the time," I said. "I probably would have kept giving until there was nothing left." Madison nodded. "I'm sorry it took something that awful to set us both free." I looked at her, really looked, and saw someone still growing, still reckoning, but finally, awake. "I'm not sorry," I said, surprising myself, because sometimes the only way out is through the fire. Before bed, I stepped out onto my small balcony. The city pulsed below me, car horns, laughter wind in the trees. Life. My phone pinged. "Ethan, dinner tomorrow, my turn to cook?" I smiled. "Absolutely." Surprise me. Some people see my story as one of loss, the loss of a family, the shattering of illusions, the end of normal. But I don't. I see it as the beginning. Because when my parents pushed me out, they didn't end my life. They gave me the chance to finally live it. To everyone who's ever been told to shrink, to give more, to keep the peace at the cost of your own peace, you don't owe anyone your silence, and you are not selfish for choosing freedom. What would you have done in Brooke's shoes? Would you have walked away or confronted them, head on? Let me know in the comments, and if you've ever rebuilt your life from scratch, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories of strength, clarity, and second chances. Until next time, remember sometimes the hardest birthday becomes your rebirth.